Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Ski Talk with Tim and Tony. I'm Tony, that's Tim. And today we're just going to have a general conversation about our ski background, how we started skiing, why we like skiing so much. And so today we're going to talk to Tim about how he got into skiing. So, Tim, tell us, how did you start skiing?
It was my parents bought me a set of skis, and and I think my grandmother bought me uh, signed me up for like a ski club, and so they took me down to the bus and put me on there with I'm wearing my Levi's and stuff and long johns, and went and learned how to ski. So it was a little bit brutal that first couple times.
Did you start skiing in Southern California or was it someplace else?
Yeah, no, it was probably at Snow Summit, I'm guessing. It was either Snow Summit or up at or no, I mean Snow Valley. Snow Valley or Snow Summit. So all I know is wearing those Levi's, I was cold and wet by the time I was done. And I had these marker rotomat bindings that kind of had they held the heel on with like cables. And so when it came off, that heel piece wasn't aligned with the ski. It would just rotate freely left to right, and it was a bear to get it back on. Once if you crashed and lost your skis, which I did a lot of when I was just learning. And the other thing that I had with that setup was the straps. So you didn't have any of the today's modern brakes. You had straps that held the skis to your legs. And so when you wiped out, your skis would be tumbling along with you. And so by the end of each day, I was pretty beat up. But the good news is I enjoyed it enough to keep doing it.
When you first started skiing, were you a renter? Meaning, did you rent your gear or did you have your own gear?
No, I had the stuff that my parents bought me. Like that's how I was introduced to it. It was like maybe Christmas, and they said, "Hey, here's a pair of skis." And of course, nobody in my family skied at all, so it was kind of off the wall that they did all that. But yeah,
What you just described, that sounds like your first pair of skis were wooden skis. Because all it seemed like when I started, all skis were made out of wood.
I don't think they were, but I honestly I couldn't tell you. I mean, maybe they were. They didn't look like wood, but and I don't remember what kind of skis they were, but I remember those bindings. Man, those things were brutal.
And so you took lessons at Snow Summit or Snow Valley.
I kind of feel like there must have been some that must have been a part of it, although I really don't remember any lessons at that point. I just remember going, up and down. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I don't remember that much about it, but I was probably like 12 or 13 years old.
Once you were introduced to skiing, you fell in love with the sport and you kept doing it every year after that.
Yeah, pretty much whenever I could. I mean, one of my best seasons was when I was 15 years old. I spent the year living in British Columbia in Vancouver, and I went to school up there. And there was a mountain, Mount Seymour, that was just like 45 minutes away from school. And so they had a program where the whole school would only take a half day on Fridays. And some of us would load up on a bus and go up to Mount Seymour, and others would go, I think, play hockey and do some other winter sport type things. And we did it 6 weeks in a row. And I think back then, I mean, I think I paid the school, we paid like $30 for that. And that included a lesson when we first got there. and then we could just ski. And I remember the snow, like we called the snow up at Mammoth. We'll go, oh yeah, there's powder up there. Well, I think when you read what a lot of people, or what they say about the Sierra powder, is they call it Sierra cement, meaning that it's pretty heavy. And it's just sort of, that's just kind of what they get. But up in Vancouver, at least, man, when we were at Seymour and then even at Whistler, the powder was really light, fluffy powder. And I remember taking a lesson and learning how to roll. So like if you fell, you would, he taught us to sort of dive forward and tuck and just roll, and doing it in that powder, it was a pretty fun thing to do at the time.
What was one of the biggest things you noticed over the many years you've been skiing? One of the biggest changes you notice about skiing?
I'm not really sure, other than when we started skiing. I'm sure it was things like the rope toes. There were seemed to be more rope toes at that time, and pommel lifts, I think they call them, with the little seat. And you just don't see that stuff as often now. I can't remember if it's up at Mammoth somewhere. There's one of those sort of pommel lifts, but now with these lifts, like if you go up to Mount Baldy around here, the lift is probably as old as I am, it seems like. And I love going to Baldy. It's just a classic place. But the modern ski lifts are pretty amazing when you can put six people on there, and they just zip you up to the top, and how the chair really slows down when it gets to the bottom and then it takes off, that kind of thing.
When you started skiing, what was how much was a lift ticket?
It was like $8.
So there was no such thing as ski passes, icon pass.
Somewhere along the way, well, I'm going to say in the 80s, my dad bought me some kind of a, there was some kind of a ski club or American Ski Club or something like that offered discounted tickets, and he signed me up for it. And I don't think that I used it a whole lot, but I do remember, just that it was there, and I think that he had gotten it for me. So that was probably like the Icon Pass in its infancy or something.
When you started skiing, and so obviously you liked skiing, you stuck with it. Did you always ski by yourself, or do you have like a brother, sister, father? Did any of them get into it?
Yeah, my family uh, pretty much not. Uh, my brother's one attempt at skiing. We went to Whistler, and he went up and took some ski lessons. And apparently, they just, at the end of the lesson, they just left you there on the mountain. And apparently, the lessons were like up the mountain, right? They were like halfway up the mountain or something. And so he had to figure out how to try to get down, and he ended up falling and injuring his knee. And they took him down in a basket, and he never got back on the skis again. I did have the opportunity to teach my dad to ski, probably when he was about 45 years old, something like that. Let's see, 45, 25, 20. Yeah. When he was about 45, 46, right in there. And he enjoyed it. And I know he skied a little, here and there by himself. And then, I mean, I've had friends throughout the year that I would go skiing with, work friends or just friends that I grew up with. And, going up with the class in Canada, for instance, and stuff like that. And then, you and I have been skiing now for about 6, 7 years, probably. So,
When did you get your boys involved?
well, I remember having Chris. I remember carrying Chris, like holding him up at Tahoe. I think we were at North Star, and going up a lift, and then there's a lift at the bottom, and then pretty real easy green run that goes down to what's now the village. And I remember carrying him and skiing down there. Um, so I must have got John going first, probably 7 or 8 years old, and then Chris started skiing, older. I didn't take him as much as I would have liked to, um, but John's going to go with me later this month. Well, I think we'll see, but our plan is to get out.
What is your favorite ski resort in California?
I think Mammoth. Yeah, just the size of it and the variety.
All the places you have been skiing in the United States, outside of the United States, what's your favorite ski resort?
Look, they all offer something different. There's a resort, Grouse Mountain, that I haven't skied on it since high school, but Grouse Mountain, you can night ski and look out over Vancouver and the Vancouver Bay. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. So you're skiing at night. You're looking out at the lights on the ships in the harbor and everything, and the city. It's amazing. So that's what I think of there. But I don't know that this. I don't remember how much variety there was as far as skiing goes. Whistler, now that well, when I went there, they didn't have Blackcomb. So I would venture to say that Whistler and Blackcomb are bigger than Mammoth. Um, but it's been a lot of years since I was there. So I kind of feel like when you go skiing, you can only take advantage of so much of that resort at a time, one run at a time. And so, yeah, I don't know that I have specifically a favorite other than, I really like Mammoth.
When you go skiing and you go into the mountains and stuff, what kind of vehicle do you drive?
In '84, I bought my first new car, which was a Toyota truck, and it was a four-wheel drive. And so then I drove that thing and took it skiing, and it made it with flying colors. I mean, you could get that thing into 2 feet of snow, and it would just keep chugging away. So that was nice. And then I've always since that time had Toyotas. I had an '06 Tundra that I would go in sometimes, and then most recently I've got a 2020 Tundra four-wheel drive, as you're aware, and we haven't had any problems with it. The only thing I would recommend when you're driving, well, one of the things I would recommend when you're driving, in the mountains or anywhere where it could be freezing, when you hit ice, it doesn't matter what kind of tires you've got on that thing, unless they're like spiked tires or something. When you go to try to stop on ice, there's no stopping. And so you got to approach any kind of a stoplight or that type of thing very carefully and make sure that you slow down.
When you put your truck in four-wheel drive, do you feel the difference? Like when you're on a road covered with snow, do you feel a difference in four-wheel drive opposed to regular drive?
Yeah, less slipping around for sure. And and then depending on where you are and what you're doing, if you're in a parking lot trying to break out of a heavy snowfall like we've done at Mammoth last year, sometimes you'll get stuck and you put it in four-wheel drive and you'll just crawl right out of it. Um, so yeah, the four-wheel drive definitely helps. It's nice now that you can just flip the switch turn the dial inside the truck and put it into either four high or four low. In the past, you used to have locking hubs, manual hubs that you had to get out and turn. Um, yeah, so that four wheel drive is great. I use it anytime I get onto a slippery surface. whether, snowy, icy, that kind of thing, I just put it in 4-wheel drive. It's just I think the safest thing to do.
Got anything else you want to share with us, Tim?
One thing I would say is I had the opportunity to ski in Innsbruck, Austria, and it was a beautiful place to go, but the snow that season was not very good at all. And the other thing that I learned, at least back then, was that the Germans, they're pretty pushy. So when you if you get in a big line that's funneling down, you got to use your elbows and your hips and just work your way in, because if you don't, you're never going to get there. If you like our podcast, please like it. Please share it if you get the opportunity, and that's about it.
There you have it. A little history about Tim and how he got into skiing. So I want to thank you for joining us today with Ski Talk with Tim and Tony. Until next time, see you on the slopes.